Welcome back to Brett Breaks Things. I hope you had a great 4th of July. Obviously, I've got unfortunate things to get into. Um, you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm going to jump into it in just a second. But before I do, I had a great time on 4th of July. I hope you did too. I cooked for the fam, a little bit of grilling. My mother-in-law, Rose, did all the heavy lifting. Thank you, Rose. She prepped the ribs, marinated the London broil. She did a lot of the heavy work. I just stood at the grill, drank a beer, chilled out. It's great though. Ribs, hot dogs, shrimp, scallops, the whole deal. It was awesome. Fixed the sprinklers, fixed the fan, the lights, got a little bit done without a little time off. I hope you guys spent it well with family, enjoyed yourself. Unfortunately, there were some in the country that were not enjoying themselves over the weekend, obviously. Um, and we're just gonna get into it. Um, the tragedy in Texas, um, the flooding, right? I mean, just the numbers are getting to such a level that it's hard not to get emotional just talking about it. Just devastating effects on the community, devastating families. People want to know, what happened? How did this happen? How did how could this happen? And I have a little timeline here, but I think it's important to say off the top, you want to default right to the cuts to NOAA, the cuts to the National Weather Service. That's where you want to go immediately. It's where I wanted to go immediately. How did those cuts affect, precipitate, agitate the tragedy that we saw in Texas? To be fair, and I'm going to get into those cuts, by the way, and there have been cuts already. There are proposed cuts to NOAA. There's existing cuts to NOAA, the National Weather Service, FEMA. They've already begun the cuts. They've happened. They've begun, and I will get into them. And there's proposed cuts, more cuts, cuts to green energy, all sorts of cuts. With the one big beautiful bill being signed into law, we're going to get to that as well. It's a sad day all around, but it's important. It's important to point out what happened here accurately. The victims, the families who are in distress, they deserve the truth about what went wrong. Where were they failed? Because they were failed. Um, the warnings began as early, and by the way, we've got 88. The death toll right now is up to 88 with 28 children. 68 of those were in Kerr County alone. We're going to hear from Joaquin Castro. He is the rep from that district, the 20th, Texas's 20th. So we're going to hear from Joaquin Castro in a little bit. But 68 of those were in Kerr County, with a number of people still missing. There were failures here, but it's important to note that the warnings began July 3rd. The warnings began July 3rd. And certain, you know, uh, processes, started up. What needs to take place leading up to an event like this? The process had started on July 3rd. All the way through July 3rd and up until July 4th, there were warnings. Then July 4th and 5th, the warnings became stronger. Much more came out from the National Weather Service. The flash flood emergencies began the 4th and the 5th. There were 8 flash flood emergency declarations across the 4th and the 5th. So on the 3rd, the warnings began from the National Weather Service. On the 4th and the 5th, it became an emergency. They used national NOAA weather radio constant broadcasts. Okay, that constantly went the entire time. There were wireless emergency alerts, the WEA, the wireless emergency alerts. They were alerting you to considerable and catastrophic warnings on the 4th and the 5th. National Weather Service website, social media, they were all active. Local TV and radio stations, internet briefings, hydrological gauge networks, all of them going. The first flash flood warning was the July 3rd, 11:41. The first emergency was July 4th, 4:03 a.m. That was 45 to 60 minutes before peak river surge. So the National Weather Service was active, was working, was doing its thing. So what happened? Well, they point to local system weaknesses in what happened. In Camp Mystic, and we're going to get to a little bit more of the Camp Mystic specifics in a second. In Camp Mystic, specifically, there were no sirens or any public address system at all. In rural areas like Kerr, Bandera, and Kendall, they relied on personal phones and social media, which failed in low signal areas. The weak cell signal was a big one they pointed to. The cell service in parts of Hill County was spotty at best, especially in valleys and river camps that were susceptible to these flooding. Some people had their phones set to silent or do not disturb, and more than should have been. Let's just put it that way. The numbers are a little inconclusive on how many people suffered from that, but and of course older people and some migrants they weren't aware of WEA support. They weren't aware of weather emergencies being able to be received on their phones. Didn't set it up. Never signed up for it. Aren't looking for it. There were local evacuation notices. Delays in those, big delays in local evacuation, and little to no ground presence from the county pre-flooding. Nobody was out there directing, helping, warning, preparing. Little to no is what they're saying. And the local and TV radio really dropped the ball. Some simply didn't play the warnings. Some decided not to. In favor of advertising and programming. Some just went on a pre-recorded set of things they were playing on their channel and did not deviate. Nobody home. Nobody at the controls. Just playing their preset programming all the way through this. People sitting at home, watching whatever, and not getting these warnings because the channels did not come off of their preset. Didn't bother to come in, cut in, have anybody live, even with a warning. Didn't have to have a video. It didn't have to be, high tech. It could have just been a written, blocky warning with somebody recorded over it, flood warning. But they didn't break out of that.
I will say, Brett, as somebody that, myself coming from traditional, terrestrial radio, that was always a big concern about the consolidation of markets and the automation and the piping in of things. This right here is it coming to life, those concerns where, the station's on, but nobody's home.
Yeah.
It's all automated.
Yeah.
Nobody's there. And because it's so, unfortunately corporatized and there's so many levels, it's hard to sometimes get the, as somebody that may be running the board, they have to get approval to do things. It's not up to them to just say, oh, my God, emergency. No, they're calling people, and they got to call people, and they got to call people. So, unfortunately...
And as the big companies eat up more and more of these services, if they drop the ball is dropped across a larger area.
Absolutely.
More people are affected by that. So, absolutely, Scott. Local TV, radio dropped the ball for sure. Camp Mystic, I'll get to the numbers in a second. No nighttime staff alert protocol at all. The camp had no high ground evacuation plan at all. And this is a camp that has been, this is a traditional camp. Like many people, many famous and affluent people have gone to this camp. This is a very popular, highly regarded camp in the area. Jenna Bush went there. Other people went there. No high ground evacuation plan at all. And the staff were unaware of how fast the water could rise, and they didn't wake the campers up. They delayed waking the campers up. They didn't want to wake them up for nothing, I guess. And with no sirens, right? With no sirens and no evacuation plan, no chance. No chance. Camp Mystic specifically, 27 confirmed deaths at this camp. 10 to 11, it's in flux. Campers right now are missing. One counselor is missing. Honestly, it didn't have to happen. It didn't have to happen. The Camp Mystic tragedy didn't have to happen. the scope of the tragedy in general didn't have to happen. But you can't lay this one at the feet of the National Weather Service, even with the cuts. Even with the cuts, you can't lay it at their feet. It was a breakdown at a local level, an unprecedented breakdown, and it cost them. It cost them lives, communities destroyed. Didn't have to happen. So, and by the way, in response to this, there is a newly surfaced report confirming a disaster warning bill, HB 13, aimed at funding local alert systems failed in the Texas legislature. This bill failed. Disaster warning bill HB 13. It was in the Texas legislature, and it failed. They didn't pass it, by the way. You want to see where this could have been avoided, possibly? Look no further than a Republican-led Texas legislature. They're going to have a special session. They're going to try to push something through in the face of this. You know, thoughts and prayers is what I'm hearing. Thoughts and prayers is what I'm hearing. And I'm not going to go off on a left tangent, but thoughts and prayers is what we hear during mass shooting tragedies. But they're running to pass legislation here. Why don't they run to pass legislation in the face of a school shooting or a mass shooting? But I'll tell you why, and you know why. It's because there's no flood lobby, right? There's no flood lobby pumping millions of dollars into our government. If there was big money in flooding, there'd be a delay in this legislation too. And so I'm not going to do that all morning. Obviously, there's a tragedy to focus on, but that's something I just could not get my head around. Thoughts and prayers once again. But this time we're running to make legislation. At least we're doing that. At least that's happening. After you shot down the original bill, before lives were lost. And those cuts to NOAA and the National Weather Service that have already happened, well, in NOAA, as of June 29th, and by the way, they're aiming at a 17% reduction in staff. That's their aim for NOAA. Right now, as of June 29th, they're up to 850 to 880 employees, give or take, due to their firing and hiring, resignations, lots of resignations, plus firings, anywhere between 850 and 880 employees gone. 196 contracts, gone. 8 to 19 leases, gone. There have been operational disruptions across the board. Boston, Albany, Paducah, they've suspended their balloon launches as of March. No more weather balloon launches in those cities because of these cuts. And NOAA has decommissioned multiple climate and geoscience databases. Gone. 500 National Weather Service staff, gone. Boston, giant city, only 7 meteorologists left in the entire city. You can't blame the National Weather Service for what happened in Texas. But you will be able to blame something on these cuts coming soon. There's no way you can do this to our preventative services and not see an impact, not have a consequence. And every time when it comes to things like this, the consequence is human lives. Texas, the local level, failed, and it cost human lives. Nationally, what's going to be next? What's going to fail next?
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because democracy doesn't defend itself.
In parts of central Texas, the floodwaters have receded, but grief hangs in the air as the search for the missing girls from Camp Mystic widens. Inside their deserted cabins, muddied cots and overturned tables lie scattered. Saturday evening, Texas Governor Greg Abbott visited the campsite, vowing to work around the clock to find the girls and bring them home safely. On Friday, the river surged past 29 feet before the gauge failed, the second highest level ever recorded. Ground crews gathered to sift through debris and search for survivors today, while rescue teams and helicopters airlifted as many people as they could. For many, their only escape route was to climb onto their rooftops. The National Weather Service first detected floods in the region late Thursday night.
The RV park right at the end of my granny's road that were completely flooded.
But some people in the area said the alerts didn't reach them in time.
No warnings at all. They came hours later, which was the most devastating part.
Yeah, so the Weather Service alerts, warnings, emergencies were coming out. They weren't getting them locally. I can't help but think of Katrina when I see that footage. Looks just like Katrina. And that was a catastrophic failure of the American people and the people in Louisiana. That was on a broader level. That was a failure by the administration at the time. That was a failure by FEMA. Underfunding, low response times. Kanye had something to say about it right around that time. I'm not going to get into Kanye's. We're not going to start quoting Kanye on a regular basis around here. That's a one-way ticket to a psych evaluation. So we're going to keep it light with that. But that was a catastrophic failure of the people, for sure. There has been reaction to this. I'm going to play Trump's reaction. We went a whole show I think Thursday, Thursday we went the whole show, our first whole show, without playing any Trump. And my TDS started kicking in. I started scratching my berries and twitching and shaking. And my TDS kicked in, so we had to go overtime on the Trump. When we came back from break, we got a lot of Trump today. I'm sorry. Somebody's got to listen to this, dude. All right, let's hear from Trump.
Oh, that's terrible. The floods. It's shocking. They don't know the answer yet as to how many people, but it looks like some young people have died. Will there be any federal aid for them? Oh, yeah. Sure. We'll take care of it. We're working with the governor. It's a terrible thing.
I just want to say that is a Trump clip that I can't tear apart. He nailed this one. I mean, the dude does so many interviews and stop and chats and pressers, and he lies in 99% of them all. This is the 1%. A tragedy in Texas. He says, this is shocking. This is a tragedy. I'll be talking to the governor. Hard stop. Great job, Trump. You got that one right. You nailed one. I'll be playing plenty of the alternative today. Don't worry. Why don't we just start right away?
Are you still planning to phase out FEMA?
Well, FEMA is something we can talk about later. But right now they're busy working, so we'll leave it at that.
Yes, that means yes. Short answer, yes. Yes, he's absolutely planning to cut back on FEMA. They're cutting the overall budget, I believe, by 20-something%. I got the numbers here. There's a workforce cut in FEMA as well planned. But yes, the short answer to that is yes. Okay, so, it continues.
In light of the floods, do you think that the federal government needs to hire back any of the meteorologists who were fired in the last few months?
I wouldn't know that. I really wouldn't. I would think not. This was the thing that happened in seconds. Nobody expected it. Nobody saw it. Very talented people are there, and they didn't see it. It's, I guess they said once in 100 years, they've never seen anything like this. So I wouldn't, people are trying to blame the school. They're trying to blame the camp. They're trying to blame, it's just a horrible thing. But no, I wouldn't say that, no.
This is becoming a theme, by the way. And if you're wondering who that gentleman is next to him, that's Howard Lutnick. He's the one that told you that if your grandma gets kicked out of her nursing home and she complains about it, she's the fraudster. Remember that charming little sound? If you get kicked off your health care, if your benefits get cut and you complain, we got you. You're the waste, fraud, and abuse we were referring to. So keep your mouth shut. That Howard Lutnick. That's who that gentleman is. Very charming gentleman, Howard Lutnick. But isn't it funny how these once in 100, once in 200, never before seen scenarios keep popping up in the last 5 years or so? But don't worry, climate change is a hoax. It's a hoax, remember? Our administration's been saying that. The Republicans are dug right in. It's an absolute hoax. They don't mince words about it. Don't talk to them about climate change. They've already rolled back green incentive and green energy, science. They've rolled it back in this bill at an unprecedented level. It's all coming back. The EV mandates, all coming, not mandates, incentives, subsidies, all coming back. The deductions, all of it's going away. Okay, don't talk to them about climate change. All these 1 in 100, once in a century, once every 200 years, it's a coincidence. These record highs across the country over the last week, everywhere, record highs. Everywhere across this country, record highs. It's a coincidence. It's a coincidence. And should we be hiring back these meteorologists? Nah. They're going to miss it anyway. Didn't you hear them? We got talented people that missed this. So what's hiring more meteorologists going to do? Why try to fix it? We've got these beautiful cuts in place that don't even come close to covering our tax cuts for the billionaires. But that's got to go, right? The funding to NOAA's got to go. The funding to the National Weather Service, that's got to go. We got to weaken FEMA. That's all got to go because we got to try to pay for these tax cuts for the billionaires, even though we don't come close. Not even close. Not even close. He continues.
Are you investigating whether some of the cuts to the federal government left key vacancies at the National Weather Service or in the emergency coordination?
No,
They did not.
They did. I'll tell you.
Watch it, Howard.
If you look at that, what a situation that all is, and that was really the Biden setup. That was not our setup, but I wouldn't blame Biden for it either. I would just say this is a 100-year catastrophe, and it's just so horrible to watch.
Yeah, got nothing to do with the cuts. Has nothing to do with being understaffed. Lutnick, you better watch yourself. They asked your dear leader a question. They didn't ask you. He got a couple syllables in, and then his self-preservation kicked in, and he shut it down. Watch yourself, Howard. You had your chance. He's our Treasury Secretary. There was a budgetary. I'm sorry, Secretary of Commerce, not a Treasury Secretary. I apologize. Thank you, Scott. Secretary of Commerce. He's our Secretary of Commerce. I have to get these things right. He actually showed up at a couple budgetary hearings, had some interesting things to say.
The idea is to automate that, to put it on the cloud so that the 2,100 meteorologists we have and the hundreds of hydrologists that we have can forecast the weather from central locations and back up each other and be more appropriate. So I think the technological advancements we will make over the next year or 2 years will totally change these things. But I want to be crystal clear. Every single person, the National Weather Service, we are at full staff, we have full capacity, and we will have the best forecasting capacity.
Okay, I'm going to stop him right there. The automation he's talking about right now, cutting staff in favor of automation, that's what just failed the people in Texas. The automation down the line, somewhere down the line of automation, failure, costing human lives. He's talking about a centralized location relying on automation to farther reaching places. This is what Scotty was just mentioning. This is what we're talking about. You put more automation in place, that's more things that can fail. He's taking money away from localized weather forecasting and emergency broadcasting and preparedness, localized, in favor of a central location with more automation that just failed us, Howard Lutnick. Just failed us. And it cost children's lives. It cost communities, homes, ruined lives, missing people. He continues. And a different hearing, this is Lutnick again.
It's my understanding that as of today, offices in Kansas, Alaska, and Oregon are no longer operating 24 hours a day. Is that accurate?
The department employs 2,100 meteorologists and hundreds of other forecasters. Okay, this is less than 5%. We are fully staffed.
All right, just stop right there. He's claiming these 3 research centers that he shut down completely. He's claiming they were only 5%, but we're fully staffed. We just cut 5%, which I don't believe you, but we're fully staffed. We just cut staff, but we're fully, yeah, you're fully staffed because you cut people. You cut them all the way down. Whatever number you landed at, that's what you're staffed at. If you cut 800 jobs and whoever's left working with you, that's your full staff. Semantics, bullcrap, talking around a direct question. You're cutting research in 3 separate facilities. 21 meteorologists, we're fully staffed. He's asking you about cutting these 3 research facilities and the effect it's going to have. Just talk around it, lie. Don't take responsibility. We're going to hear from more people. We're going to hear from officials in Texas. We're going to hear from Kristi Noem, of all people. God, any situation is made worse by hearing anything from Kristi Noem, period. I don't care what happened. If I have to hear from Kristi Noem about it, it's worse now. So I'm going to inflict that torture upon you. We'll hear a little bit more from Trump, and we'll hear a little bit more from the rep from that 20th district in Texas, Joaquin Castro. That's all coming back.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. Brett breaks things, fighting for America one mic drop at a time.
I got updates at 7 o'clock. First one I heard. And I've heard updates throughout the week, but not before 7 o'clock in the morning. Wasn't that a fundamental failure of the federal government's responsibility to keep us safe?
And so I will tell you that for decades, for years, everybody knows that the weather is extremely difficult to predict, but also that the National Weather Service over the years at times has done well, and at times we have all wanted more time and more warning and more alerts and more notification. That is something, and one of the reasons that when President Trump took office, that he said he wanted to fix, and is currently upgrading the technology, and the National Weather Service has indicated that with that and NOAA that we needed to renew this ancient system that has.
There it is. We need to renew this ancient system. Biden did it every time. Every time. And I said it a few weeks ago, we've reached the end of that being valid in any way, shape, or form. All right? You've been here long enough. I don't want to hear about Biden's administration anymore. Don't want to hear about Obama. Don't want to hear about Biden. And I don't really want to hear about your first term, Mr. Trump. We are going to hear about that later. And Noam gets right in there. In the face of a tragedy, Biden did it. The ancient system that was in place when Trump got there. He's been looking into upgrading it. Was that not a priority? No, that's right. It wasn't a priority. I know what your priority was. Tax cuts for your billionaire donors and friends. That was your priority. That is always the Republicans' priority. It is the only thing you're going to get done other than, ripping families apart, trampling all over the Constitution, no habeas corpus, entering homes without a warrant, ripping people out of their cars, detaining and beating passerbys who may think that this Gestapo tactic, is inappropriate. You're getting that done as well, I guess. But no, upgrading this archaic system that Noam is talking about, that wasn't a priority. He didn't get around to it. The local officials in this county had their own perspective on what happened. The video is not playing for this. Yeah, I'm going to come out of this. I'm not sure why the audio wasn't playing on that one. That's weird. Regardless, they're talking about delays in the weather service, emergency service getting to them. They were talking about there was delays in the emergency and the warnings getting to them, but more importantly, what they talked about in that clip is the forecasters had it wrong. They hit that point over and over again. The forecasters. It was not forecast for this. We all heard the forecast together. He keeps repeating that. Another official comes up and says it again. He says, hey, we all got the same forecast. It did not forecast this. Nobody told us this was coming. Now, who's that on? Who are they blaming with that? Their messaging is all on point. These officials we hear from in that clip, I wish we could have played it because their messaging was all on point. The forecasts were wrong. Do you want to point there at funding for the National Weather Service and NOAA? Go ahead. Joaquin Castro, he was actually, by one source, the Center for something, a center that evaluates the performance of all of our reps in the House. I thought I had it right here, and I can give that for you in a little bit, maybe correct myself a little bit. But this center that evaluates the performance of all our House reps in the 118th Congress, this guy was voted #1 in the entire House, the most effective rep in the House, Joaquin Castro. I thought that was a little interesting aside.
Just talking about the federal government and even the local government, 2 Texas National Weather Service offices involved in forecasting and warning about flooding on the Guadalupe River are missing some key staff members. A director of the NWS union told CNN that the Austin San Antonio office is missing a warning coordination meteorologist due to the Trump administration's buyouts.
And I don't think it's helpful to have missing key personnel from the National Weather Service not in place to help prevent these tragedies. And, you know, when I say that we ought to do everything possible to help prevent a tragedy like again, that's part of what I mean. You know, that's why there's an incredible value to the National Weather Service, is because, you know, on most days, obviously, you're not going to have a tragedy like this. But when you have flash flooding, you know, there's a risk that you won't have the personnel to do that analysis, do the predictions in the best way, and it could lead to tragedy.
I really, really, really respect his response and his comments in light of this. He did not bash the administration. He didn't bring up the one big beautiful bill. He didn't bring up the Trump administration's 2026 budget proposal. He didn't bring those things up. He didn't get tribal. He said, look, we need people staffed at the National Weather Service to prevent tragedies like this going forward. Obviously, he's talking about the cuts to the National Weather Service. Obviously, he's talking about cuts to NOAA. It's clear that's what he's talking about, but he did it without attacking anybody. This is a tragedy, and if we are not staffed properly, we will not be able to prevent tragedies like this going forward. Simple, to the point, and accurate. I can see why he's highly regarded. I can see. This next video, we're going to hear from Rick Spinrad. He's a former NOAA administrator. The video's kind of screwed up here, but I wanted to play it. I wanted you to hear from him. So I'm going to play it. Please disregard the audio being off sync on this one.
A memo obtained by CBS News finds the agency's 2026 budget may be slashed by more than $1.5 billion compared to this year's budget levels. NOAA's research functions would be, according to this memo, the hardest hit.
The impact would be across the nation, across sectors. It would affect just about every American, almost every industry and every community. These misguided cuts are really basically saying, especially when you cut research out of the formula, that what we've got right now in terms of our ability to predict these devastating weather events, climate change impacts, that's good enough. We don't need to make any improvements, and that will cause serious problems.
Serious problems. So we're talking about the cuts coming. In the face of this, we're looking at giant cuts to NOAA. And Rick Spinrad is worried about it. A lot of people are worried about it, obviously. There was one guy that was worried about it before this happened, a local legend in weather and meteorology, John Morales, a weatherman from Miami. I know my Florida peeps, when I say John Morales, boom, you know exactly who I'm talking about. The dude's been a stalwart in the community for years and years and years. This video is from weeks ago. I wanted to get to it almost a month ago when these cuts started to come out, what was going to happen to the National Weather Service, what was going to happen to NOAA. I wanted to bring it up then. He did. He did bring it up then. Let's hear from John Morales.
Right? When is it going to turn? John, it's not turning. It's coming straight to us. It's going to turn. All right? The turn was never forecast to be on Sunday. The turn isn't even on Monday morning. The turn will come Monday afternoon, Monday evening, into Tuesday. Remember that? That was about 6 years ago. That was Hurricane Dorian, as it was absolutely devastating the northwest Bahamas as a Category 5, sat over that region for 2 days. It was headed straight west. Lots of people in Florida were concerned the hurricane was heading here. And as you've grown accustomed to my presentations over my 34 years in South Florida newscasts, confidently, I went on TV and I told you, it's going to turn. You don't need to worry. It is going to turn. And I am here to tell you that I am not sure I can do that this year because of the cuts, the gutting, the sledgehammer attack on science in general, and I could talk about that for a long, long time, and how that is affecting the U.S. Leadership in science over many years, and how we're losing that leadership, and this is a multi-generational impact on science in this country, all right? But specifically, let's talk about the federal government cuts to the National Weather Service and to NOAA. Did you know that Central and South Florida National Weather Service offices are currently basically 20 to 40% understaffed? From Tampa to Key West, including the Miami office, 20 to 40% understaffed. Now, this type of staffing shortage is having impacts across the nation because there's been a nearly 20% reduction in weather balloon releases, launches, that carry those radiosondes. And what we're starting to see is that the quality of the forecasts is becoming degraded. There's also a chance, because of some of these cuts, that NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft will not be able to fly this year, and with less reconnaissance missions, we may be flying blind, and we may not exactly know how strong a hurricane is before it reaches the coastline, like happened a couple of years ago in Hurricane Otis in Acapulco, Mexico. So I was asked to talk about this today. I'm glad I was. I just want you to know that what you need to do is call your representatives and make sure that these cuts are stopped.
That's it right there. And, I couldn't help think to myself, doing that on local news live, that's a gutsy move by John Morales. The city council for Miami is Republican, the mayor's Republican, governor's Republican. Miami voted for Trump twice. Miami voted for DeSantis twice. I can't help but think that there could be real consequences for him for speaking so brazenly about the cuts from this administration. And he mentions the administration specifically. But maybe it takes a John Morales to say something. Maybe it takes somebody with the stature and the track record and somebody that has the public's trust like he does. Maybe it takes somebody like that to be able to confidently stand up there and just face down the administration and the cuts that are going to affect all of us. His profession, obviously, but all of us. Pretty brave move out of him. I respect the hell out of it, to be perfectly honest with you. And speaking of Miami, you guys remember Alligator Alcatraz? We've been talking about this a little bit. Fun little vacation spot in the Everglades being set up by Our wonderful governor, DeSantis, at $500 million a year, to house 5,000 immigrants. Well, it's facing a little bit of a challenge right now. Now, we're not even in hurricane season. Are we in hurricane season now? Oh, yeah, we are. We're still in hurricane season. I'm sorry. But we haven't had anything hurricane-like. All right, we are in season. I apologize. But we haven't had anything even close to that. And we've actually been struggling to get rain. You should see my lawn. Rose and I have been doing work on the lawn, reseeding it, fertilizer, the whole deal to get this thing to grow right. Because we've had a lack of rain in the area. Lack of rain. Okay, it has not been rainy at all. Here's Alligator Alcatraz just recently in the face of a little bit of precipitation. Watch this time lapse. Whoops. And if you can't see this, if you're listening, you're watching at least 2, 3, maybe 4 inches of flood water just right across the entire barracks, I don't know what to call them, section of this internment camp where all the beds are. Water just rushed. It had to be at least 3 inches, right? I think we can all agree who's watching it. 3 inches of dirty, filthy swamp water completely cover the floor of the living area, of the sleeping area, the barracks, of the internment. I don't know. That is really bad. You just built the joint. Rushed it. Here's more. Here's more. And for those of you just listening, that's a heavy wind you hear hitting the roof of one of the buildings here at Alcatraz. And it's one of the tents, really, and the roof, it looks like it's about to fly off. It is just violently flapping back and forth. You can hear how loud it is. The rain is coming down, and there's the leakage all over the floor. All right, and there's the leakage all over the floor. I would laugh about this more. I would make more light of this, except I guarantee they're going to open it like this anyway. I promise you they're not going to fix this. They're just going to open it, and there's going to be 5,000 detainees in there getting all sorts of diseases, sickness from that flood water coming in. It's only going to be a matter of time for one of those roofs just come off. They'll laugh about it. Alligators will come swimming into that flood water. They'll laugh about it. How could they stop snakes from coming in? They talked about the snakes being a deterrent from escaping. Now they're just going to be living with these people. How are you going to stop the snakes from coming in with floodwater of that magnitude? You just opened the joint. That's $500 million a year? That's what $500 million gets me? That? You just built it. Where'd the money really go? $500 million? Where's it really going, Governor DeSantis? I'd like to know that.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts. No fluff.
All right. I'd love to actually start berating and accusing DeSantis of embezzling funds for Alligator Alcatraz for another segment. I would like to do that and laugh at his incompetence, but we got another tragedy over the weekend. As you know, the one big, beautiful bill has been signed into law. Trump got his moment. Trump wins this round. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I told you so, I told you so. It wasn't some big declaration that he would get this through eventually in his Republican majority House and Senate. Like, that wasn't some kind of Nostradamus moment out of me. I just knew it. And I just wanted to make sure you didn't get too excited when you started hearing about Rick Scott and Massey and Paul and Murkowski and all these people. Well, let's hear from them. Let's hear from some of the things they said in the face of this bill. Let's hear some of the things they said that I told you not to get excited about.
What the Senate did is unconscionable. What they did to our bill was unconscionable. I'll vote against it here, and I'll vote against it on the floor.
You're going to hear a lot about the tax cuts, but the deficit, Nobody's talking about the deficit. Nobody. I got it. The tax cuts are important. We are going to get the tax cuts done in some fashion. But we cannot saddle our children and our grandchildren with an exploding national debt.
Do I like this bill? No, because I tried to take care of Alaska's interests. But I know that in many parts of the country, there are Americans that are not going to be advantaged by this bill.
And then she voted for it. They all did. They all just went and voted for it. No big surprise. Honestly, no big surprise. We gotta take the hits on this one, kids. And we just have to continue to point out all the people that are gonna be hurt on this. And we're gonna have to be loud about it. And our Democratic nominees in the midterms are gonna have to be loud about it. Because a lot of this stuff doesn't take place, doesn't kick in till after the midterms. They did this on purpose. It was a tactic. A lot of the unsavory stuff, the cuts to healthcare, cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, the subsidies running out for the ACA, the cuts to SNAP, a lot of this, almost all of it takes place, kicks in after the midterms. They did not want their voting base pissed off just before the midterms. So they purposefully delayed it. Purposefully. The Medicaid the new work requirements for Medicaid, that kicks in December 2026. SNAP and food aid restrictions late 2026. The clean energy credits expire mid to late 2026. Student loan repayment changes gradually phase in 2026. Affordable housing cuts phased post 2025. Rural hospital cuts, those begin in 2026. All that really unsavory crap will kick in after they've voted. So it's going to be up to those running for these offices to remind people, to tell them, to warn them what is coming right after you vote your Republicans back in, if that's what you should choose to do. What they are doing to you, what is going to happen just after this voting cycle. It's going to be up to them. They have to be on message, on point. They have to be digestible. They have to make sense. It's important. It's important. Let's watch them celebrate. Let's watch the Repubs celebrate. Oh, they got so excited.
On this vote,
we got to get good with
the yeas
this.
are 218, the nays are 214. The motion is adopted.
And then the cult-like chanting begins. Is anybody else sick of the most despicable people in our country appropriating being American? Appropriating the American flag, appropriating chants of USA. When I was growing up, we heard chants of USA like that at the Olympics, right? Like at the Olympics, when we were all on the same page rooting for the same athlete or team, all having one of Randy's shared experiences she likes to talk about. They've just completely appropriated all of it. And I'm really tired of it. It really upsets me. The most un-American of us have appropriated Americanism. It's despicable. It really is. There's a couple other things I wanted to get to. I got to skip ahead. I have no choice. Let's hear from Trump again.
I think I have more power now. I could say, oh, gee, I don't know. I think I probably do because we've had a great record of success. My first term was very, very successful. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. I think we're going to blow it away this term. But, we've proven certain things, and, I think probably it's got more gravitas, more power.
It's not Friday, but a quick fact check. He was asked about, getting the one big beautiful bill passed, and does he have more power now than he did in the first term? And he says, yeah, we got more power now. He says we got more power now, and that part's true. He's got the House, he's got the Senate, he's got the Supreme Court all locked up. Yeah, he's definitely got more power now. I don't think anybody could dispute that. And Don't have to do too much fact checking to say, yeah, Trump, you're right. You do have more power now, unfortunately. You do. But we had the greatest economy in the history of our country during his first term? No. Now, in the beginning of his first term, according to economic indicators such as GDP growth, job creation, stock market performance, they were all comparable to Clinton's economy, which was very, very good. But that was all disrupted with the COVID. COVID disrupted all of that. And the national debt exploded due to the tax cuts that we just made permanent. The 2017 tax cuts exploded the debt. So that is a lie. That is absolutely a lie. It was not the most or the greatest economy in American history. Not even close, Mr. Trump. We're gonna finish up with Donald here. Sounds of Donald. I want to get these to you because it's important to know the ramblings of the leader of the free world. We have to keep you apprised at the incoherent stream of consciousness of our dear leader.
So every one of our national park, battlefields, and historic sites are going to have special events in honor of America 250. And I even think we're going to have a UFC fight. Does anybody watch UFC, the Great Day in the World? We're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have a UFC fight. Think of this, on the grounds of the White House. We have a lot of land there. We're going to build a little, we're not, Dana's going to do it. Dana's great, one of a kind. We're going to have a UFC fight, championship fight, full fight, like 20, 25,000 people. And we're going to do that as part of 250 also. We're going to have some incredible events, some professional events, some amateur events, but the UFC fight's going to be a big deal too. And
it's blood and circus. I don't want you focusing on Grandma getting kicked out of her assisted living. I don't want you to focus on your uncle getting kicked off his disability. I don't want you to focus on the fact that you won't be able to afford your health care through the ACA next year. Don't think about these things. I'm going to give you blood and violence at the White House. Yeah. That is as on brand as Trump could possibly be. We are going to give you violence and blood in lieu of successful, coherent administration of our country. We're going to hurt people with our immigration policy. We're going to hurt people with our bills, with our laws. The only law I'm going to pass, the only thing I'm going to pass my entire second term, we're going to hurt people with that. And we're going to actually hurt people in the White House. Right on brand. Right on brand. What else is on brand for Trump? This little gem.
not one Democrat voted for us. And I think we use it in the campaign that's coming up, the midterms, because we got to beat them. But all of the things that we've given, and they wouldn't vote only because they hate Trump. But I hate them too, you know that? So it's sort of I really do. I hate them. I cannot stand them because I really believe they hate our country. You want to know the truth?
Could you imagine if Obama stood up there while he was president and said, I hate Republicans. I hate Dick Cheney. He hates Obama. And I hate him too. He wouldn't make it off the property. He wouldn't make it off the property. Hating Trump, for me, is like hating the symptoms, not the cause. He is a disgusting, reprehensible hate monger. He's a terrible person and a terrible president. But we got to understand, focusing our hate for what he's doing just on him is folly. We have to focus our efforts on improving this country, on getting the right people elected, running the right people, having them all be on message. It is a waste of our energy to hate him as much as he hates us. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. We just have to get these Republicans out of here.
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett Breaks Things will be back tomorrow to break it all down.